What's up, YouTube? It's Heretic here. We're gonna do something a little different today. This is gonna be part one of a mini series called Fundamentals in Malifaux. Not exactly a introduction. There's a lot of people that have done an introduction. What I'm going to focus on is 4 key elements of Malifaux that make it not only a different game, something that stands apart from other miniature war games, but kind of the 4 things that you really need to get down if you're going to play the game. And today's first lesson is going to be the card mechanic, how cheating fate works, and just about, well, mainly about dueling, period. So this is fate, manipulating fate, and how the cards come into play for this. So let's first start off by just basically what you need, since it is a fundamentals game. So you're going to start off by a box set. This is my Summertooth Jones box set. Of course, you're going to need minis to play. You should pick up some of these little beads. These are really cheap. You can get them at a craft store for a couple bucks. These are going to represent, you can use them to represent anything from like wounds, maybe objective counters, or soul stones is what I use mine for, and we'll get into how soul stones work, in the grand scheme of the card mechanic and fate. Okay, like any good wargamer, you should have a tape measure, and of course your rule book. This is $15. It's also free online. The online version won't come with the artwork, but if you're on a budget like I am, definitely pick up the online version. It's a way to save you 15 bucks. That's a blister or something that you can add to your crew. Okay, the last thing you're going to need is a deck of playing cards. Now I'm using the Malifaux deck. This is the green deck, which is the color of the Resurrectionist, but I'm using Gremlins, but it doesn't matter. Play Reserves too. Color doesn't matter. Each deck is the same, and it is a standard deck of playing cards that you can substitute for. In the rule book, it shows you how to substitute them. Basically, the suits just change. Okay. So when do the cards come into play, and how do we use them? Basically, it actually fits in nicely with the fluff. This game is a lot about fate, and it's called the Fate deck. So the cards actually represent your fate during the game. They determine, for example, first activation. They determine winners of duels. They determine damage. And so cards become very important. Now, as a player, I had a 40k background, played fantasy, I played some other games. So the card mechanic was very new to me. And there's a couple of key elements to it that not only make it pretty inventive, but it also makes it something that you need to learn how to manipulate well. Okay? So, during the game, you're going to be dealt what is called a control hand. Now, what is a control hand? Basically, it's going to be about 5 to 7 cards, depending on the size of the game and depending on the your specific master's rules. But in a game, these cards in your control hand can be used to manipulate the winds of fate. Okay, it's called cheating fate, basically. So we're going to deal ourselves 5 cards. Now, Summer has a special rule where in a normal scrap you start off with 6. Now Summer gets 5 because, well, he's just that awesome. He doesn't need a control hand, and we'll deal our pretend opponent a control hand as well. So this is what I dealt myself. This is, I don't know if you can see that. There we go. That is a pretty crappy hand, but we'll make it work, okay? So there are two types of duels in this game. There's what you call a simple duel. Basically, that is you taking one of your stats and adding whatever card is flipped. If you look, each model comes with these cards. It has all their actions, and we'll go into that in a different video. What we're going to focus on for this game is probably defense and casting, which is represented by CA. Okay. So an example of a simple duel is, let's say I'm going to activate Summertooth Jones here, and he wants to cast a spell called Pull My Finger, which basically is what it sounds like. He basically rips ass, and any non-gremlin within 3 inches of him will take damage. Now there is no resist, so it's not considered an opposed duel. It's a simple duel because there's a target number on the spell, which is going to cost me 12. I need to get 12 or higher in order to get the spell off, and I have a casting of 5, which is that number in the corner there. So it's kind of convenient they put the casting right next to the spells. Okay, so I declare the action, I flip from the top of the fate deck, and I get a 7. So I'm at the 12. So the spell goes off. Alright? Let's say I didn't get it off. Let's pull a 2 out. Okay? At this point, I can go to my control hand and look at the cards that I have and say, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna need that 7, because that's gonna give me my 12. So there's a little control here. You can actually plan out your hand, your game, or your turn based on your control hand, knowing that if my flip is bad, I'm going to manipulate the winds of fate with my control hand and cheat in the card that I need. So that's a quick and simple duel. So let's go over an opposed duel. So an opposed duel is when I'm dueling off against an opponent. Let's say we're going to bring Molly into this, okay? And so let's say Summer's going to fire a shot at Molly. Alright, so I declare the action, make sure it's in range. It's 10-inch range, so for this, we're fine. I flip a card, and I get a 13, plus that would be a dumb luck trigger. We'll go over triggers in a different game, so, or a different video. For now, we're going to ignore it. But so what we do is we add the combat value of his weapon. He's using his boomer, and it has a combat value of 5. So he's got a 13, which gives him an 18 attack flip. Now Molly flips for defense. Okay, so her defense, and you can see it on her card. You probably can't see it from this weird angle I'm shooting at, is 4. And so I flipped an 11, which gives me 15. So Molly is losing this duel. Okay? Now, Molly then can go to her control hand and cheat in a higher card because she's losing the duel. You're allowed to cheat once per duel. It's very important. Let's say she's going to let that slide because no matter what, Summer's 18, the most she can get from her control hand is 16. Okay? Now, once you determine the winner of the duel, which in this case it's Summer, basically you're going to look at the difference. Okay? So if it's a difference of 0 meaning it's tied, it goes to the attacker. Tie always goes to the attacker, and that would give you a negative 2 twists. So what is a negative 2 twist? A negative 2 twist means that I have to do a damage flip and flip an additional 2 cards, okay, and pick the lowest. If the difference is between 1 and 5, that is considered a hit, but it's a weak hit. So there's a negative 1 modifier, meaning that I'd have to flip 2 cards and pick the lowest. The most important thing to remember about negative twists is that not only do you have to pick the lowest, but you can't go to your control hand to cheat, okay? So, for example, even if Molly was losing, but let's say the difference was greater than what we flipped, I could cheat up to make up to get close to that number and put a negative flip on Summer's damage flip. Okay? The last one is anywhere between 11 or above. That becomes a positive flip. That means I flip 2 cards and take the highest. So the numbers to remember are 0 is a negative 2 flip. 1 through 5 is a negative 1 flip. Alright, 6 through 10 is no modifiers, it's a straight flip. You flip, and whatever damage you do is what you do. And then 11 or above becomes a positive flip. So I'd flip 2 cards and pick the highest. Now, you can't cheat on negatives, but you can cheat damage on the straight flip and the positive flip. So in this case, Summer barely beat her. Now Molly has an ability called Art to Wound, which puts an additional negative flip. And trust me, in this game, the more cards you flip, the more chances of you flipping the worst card in the deck, which is a black joker, which is value 0. Or you can flip the red joker, which is the highest point of the ebb and flow of magic, which counts as a 14, erases any negatives, and it allows you to flip an additional card, and you add the 2 damage values together. So it's a very powerful card. So in this case, Summer barely beating Molly would have to flip 1 for the Heart to Wound and 1 for the negative modifier. That's a 1, by the way. And the actual damage flip. And look what I flipped. You saw me shuffle, so I didn't cheat. This is a red joker. So then this red joker takes away all these negatives, and I get an additional flip. So I did 1 severe, and I did 1 moderate. So for Summer, his severe is 5, his moderate is 3, and so you're dishing out 8 points of damage, and Molly only has 10 wounds. So you've almost got her dead. That's the dangerous part about flipping multiple cards, is this guy might come out. Okay? But, you know, it's 1 card in the entire deck. It's not going to happen much, but it's pretty cool that it happened here. The other thing that we could do, let's say Summer's going to fire again. So he flips, I get a 9 of crow, and Molly flips, and she gets the 6 of mass. Okay? So that's what we're dealing with. It goes, the losers of duel gets their opportunity to cheat first. So Molly goes to her control hand and says, alright, I'm gonna take this 12 of rams and cheat that in. So that replaces the value of that 8. So now she's got her defensive 4 plus the 12, gives her 16. Summer's attack is combat 5, so he's at a 14. So he's losing. Now, as you see here, I cannot cheat. There's not a card that's higher than 9. I mean, technically, I could cheat and put in that 9 of Rams and give me my dumb luck trigger. But what he could do is then turn to his soul stone cache if he has it. Certain models can burn soul stones. In the game, these are the currency, and these enhance your magical abilities. So it's a very, very powerful item, and you want to reserve these for when you really need it, because you can use these for healing, you could prevent damage with it, or you can boost your flips with it. So I'm going to, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to burn a single soul stone, and I'm going to flip a card. Now, instead of replacing the value when you use a soul stone, I get to add the two values together. So I'm at 18 plus my 5. That puts me at 23. Okay. And that's called soul stoning or cheating. Basically, that's it. You have to learn to manipulate that scale. That is the most important thing about cheating fate. Let's say if I'm losing and the guy is getting a positive flip, I still can't beat him. I cheat up to make it a straight flip, or I cheat up enough to make it a negative flip. He flips 2 cards, and whatever he's flipping, you know, he has to take the lowest. That's kind of a bad example because I have 2 5s. But a lot of times what will happen is you'll flip a high card and a low card, which means he's burned a high card in the game. So that in a nutshell is how you manipulate fate in this game with duels. And I think it's a very, very cool mechanic, because not only does it incorporate the fluff of the game by these characters trying to cheat their fate, and you know, like the damage was supposed to be massive, but you know, I cheated fate so that it wasn't so bad. So not only is it cool fluff wise, but it is a cool mechanic, because unlike most games, you're doing what, maybe rerolls. Here you have some control. Here you can look at your cards and you can manage your cards. And what I've seen, most players that have like a board game or experience, they know how to manage their hands. So it becomes a level of strategy that is above just your basic gameplay. So learning how to manipulate that scale, that damage scale, the difference between a 5 and a 6. One would give you straight damage, one would put a negative flip, and maybe his 2 flips might have a high damage and a black joker, in which case he's done 0 damage. Or as we saw there, you know, I was at a double negative, I flipped a red joker, and all of a sudden, you know, instead of doing really weak damage, I've done 8 points of damage. So it's a really cool system, and well, that's it for video 1. So I hope you like it. Next video we'll go over actions, okay? So I'll see you in the next one.